Today we're going to be chatting a little bit about our latest offering, Proof of Invention, why we built it, how we built it.
Basically where POI came from, low cost, accessible way to timestamp your idea without requiring expensive fees.
Proof of Invention, where we are timestamping that someone had an idea. It can be, an Excel file, it can be a white paper, it can be a slide deck.
It protects your idea in a way that only allows you to disclose information that you want about it.
Proof of Invention is like kind of taking a step back and literally like blowing that funnel wide open. It could literally be anyone with any idea in any form. I have an idea, I take a picture of my napkin, I timestamp it using Proof of Invention. Please could you tell us about one or two of the projects that have done this whole cycle?
The first actually project that used POI from end to end was Cerebrum's project MITI. They really went from anchoring initial invention on chain to then tokenizing into an IP NFT. Another project that I think is quite a nice one was of course the hackathon itself, so just having student testers. Proof of Invention, it's really about being able to secure something that you own at a low cost.
Hello Kevin, welcome to the DeSci podcast. I believe this is, your second episode joining us. For those of you who don't know, Kevin is our head of product here at Molecule. And today we're going to be chatting a little bit about our latest offering, Proof of Invention. Sort of why we built it, how we built it, how it plugs into the Molecule protocol in general, and kind of the need that we're trying to solve for early stage inventors. So Kevin, please intro yourself.
Cool. Hi Ella, thanks for having me again. Hi guys, and to everyone who's watching. I'm Kevin, I'm the head of product at Molecule. Been with the company for a year by now. Basically responsible for the overall product architecture, the strategy as well, and everything we ship from a Molecule side of things. I come from a computer science and economics background. Been in crypto since 2016. I started off in fintech actually, so more TradFi. Then pretty much, I made my hobby my career. Started directly into crypto. Worked more on, I would say, rather boring assets, regulated crypto custody and brokerage in a white label banking context. Then pivoted more into B2C crypto role as well, working at Bitpanda. So everything related to, basically investing into crypto. And then decided to take a deep dive into Web3, into the wonderful world of NFTs and infrastructure. So basically building multi-chain NFT indexer, an API and an SDK to build all cool stuff with NFTs. And then got headhunted by Molecule, discovered DeSci, and thought to myself, finally, a use case beyond PFPs for NFTs. This could really have an impact on the humanity, or let's say the real world. And then just decided to double down. And it's just been, an exciting time. A lot of things to do, a lot of things to shape for DeSci as well. And super stoked to be here today in this podcast.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much, Kevin. I think there is a really interesting phenotype of people who come into decentralized science that are kind of degens that are now wanting to find, Web3 crypto with a purpose and like that kind of land on DeSci. So it's cool to have you. I think let's just jump straight into Proof of Invention. I think for those of you who are listening who don't know what Proof of Invention is, maybe Kevin can give you a little rundown of what it is.
I'm happy to. So maybe before I start to introduce Proof of Invention first, I think just a bit of a history lesson, right? Molecule has existed for some time and basically was the initial creator or inventor of the IP NFT and the IP tokens, IPTs, that you've known. So I think this was just for us something where we saw, like IP NFTs in particular are something quite serious already, because you're putting something on chain with a legal wrapper attached to it, whether it is an SRA or any other licensees agreement. And we thought to ourselves, like, maybe there is something even more on top of the funnel that allows us to just give people something on chain as a proof. So this is where the inspiration for Proof of Invention came from. And basically us recognizing that there was this major gap in how early stage inventors, researchers, scientists basically protect their idea. in an on-chain matter. So even before, for example, filing for a patent. And we just noticed that a lot of the innovators initially hesitated to either share their ideas due to fears, for example, of being copied, and that also the traditional patent process is quite expensive, time-consuming, and at times also quite complex, and of course differs depending on the jurisdiction that you're in. So we thought to ourselves, why just not offer global unified approach to creating something on chain or timestamping something on chain? And this is basically where POI came from. It was really like low cost, accessible way to timestamp your idea. So not necessarily competing with like a provisional patent, but just something that allows users to prove provenance about what the initial idea was without requiring, for example, expensive fees or any of the legal work that was attached with it. And we also spoke a lot with our internal patent experts, lawyers, and also patent agents. And for us, this was something where we, for at least the POC, wanted to ensure 100% confidentiality. So this means that whenever you use a POI, basically no data is being uploaded. We don't store anything. The only thing that we're doing is and maybe this goes directly too much into the technical details, but we're just recording a hash on chain that keep the idea private while still being able to prove ownership.
Interesting. I think, so I want to know maybe actually let's backtrack a little bit. Molecule's goal and vision has been to bring intellectual property surrounding biotech, healthcare, and science in general on chain, because the current status of intellectual property in the world is fairly illiquid and is quite slow and bureaucratic. And so sort of Molecule's hypothesis is if we bring that on chain, that we can circumnavigate a lot of the issues that exist currently. And so like for something like proof of invention, where we are time stamping that someone had an idea, so really, really targeting like this very, very early stage invention process, literally just an idea. It can be an Excel file, it could be a white paper, it could be a slide deck, it could be an analogy we've used a lot is like a picture of a napkin, where you've literally jotted down your idea in the middle of your lunch and you've had your eureka moment. I would be curious to know why you feel like Web 2 couldn't solve this problem, and why we as a company are so strongly convinced that bringing something on chain is the answer to those those issues.
Yeah, happy to. I think it's not necessarily about Web 2 not being able to allow for a solution for this. So if you think about it this way, I think the best analogy that you can always use for a POI that is in the real world is basically having the ability to send yourself a letter, right? So it's like you have your amazing idea, whether that is just a picture of a napkin, a boan, as one of our engineers said prior, or really like a white paper, deep file system, whatever you want to basically timestamp or protect for yourself. One way to do it in the traditional world, let's call it the real world, sending yourself a letter, right? It's literally write it on a piece of paper. Either you hide it somewhere so you don't forget it. The other alternative, at least if you want to have something more official, is to send yourself this letter via the mail. And then basically what happens is that it stays confidential because people should not open other people's mail. And then ultimately what you're also receiving is basically a timestamp on the letter from the post office that basically states on that particular given day, you had this particular idea and you sent this yourself. So basically then kind of becomes a tender. For us, this was something that at least in the Web3 world, probably didn't exist like this prior, at least not using our IP stack. So we wanted to offer a similar experience that is even cheaper, so literally a fraction of a cent, works instantly as well, no matter where you are, so you don't have to wait until the post office opens, and also can be basically carried around globally at no cost. And the cool part about this is that basically it protects your idea in a way that only allows you to disclose information that you want about it. So at any given point in time, whether that's now or in 3 or in 5 years, you can always prove, for example, that certain files have been part of your initial idea that you anchored or invention. But you don't have to, so it can also stay completely private. And I think this is the beauty of things, is that usually the biggest technological advancements are in essence quite rudimentary and quite not so sophisticated, where you think, okay, wow, but it really boils down to the basic. It's really about being able to secure something that you own at a low cost way, and basically just prove this on a public ledger, which is the blockchain. And we use major blockchains for now, so it's live on Ethereum, it's live on Base, but in theory it can be done on any chain, any public ledger that you want. And I think it's really beautiful tech, because it is so simple. And we really want to make sure that basically this is just the first step in the process. So basically you start with an invention, and then whenever you basically decide to pursue further protection or further steps, you always can do that, right? So whether that's in an on-chain fashion, for example, tokenizing it or minting it into an IP NFT, or you want to use this as evidence later down the line when you are filing for a non-provisional or a patent in the real world. So I think this is just the first step of many that allows you to really own whatever you put on chain. And we want to make sure that this is, of course, somewhat compatible with traditional IP systems as well, so that this is something that doesn't, for example, inflict at a later point in time. So this is really where this non-disclosure is super important from our point. Like, no files are being uploaded. We don't see what you're timestamping there. The only thing that's basically visible on chain is the address, so the wallet that you logged in. By the way, we have even embedded wallets, so you can use your email and the password. And then basically just the transaction and the root hash. So of all of the files that you add, it's basically the top hash that we write in a transaction on chain, and that we can then just index and open up the world for any future potential steps that you want to take with your invention.
Okay, yeah, interesting. I think, like, from what I'm getting from that, as well, is that it's not like, I think one of the common questions we get at Molecule is like, if we're trying to abstract away from the intellectual property system as a whole, or if we're trying to plug into it. And I think at this stage, I mean, I think as much as it is aspirational to be like, you know, we're going to move the entire intellectual property system on chain, that's really just not feasible in this current moment or in the near future. And so, like, it must be like a constant task for product to always be building in a way that is also cognizant of the existing rails that exist. And often I think, like, rails that are actually quite far away from product in general, like legal and like patent filing and that sort of thing. How do you navigate like around those issues?
It's a good question, and I think I can just double down on what you said, right? I mean, of course, we do want to go into an on-chain IP registry at some point in time, but at the moment, it's something where we realize that the system or the protocol that we're building basically has to tuck into the existing patent protection or IP protection, if you would say so. So for us, it's really trying to build a system or a product that basically plugs into the existing patent system. So we always have to move in tandem to a degree. And for us, it's really about just trying to do it step by step, right? I think just completely overthrowing the whole patent system in one go is nearly impossible. So we try to get better every day, 1%. And then over time, this just compounds. And we, of course, want to make sure, and I think this is the core business of Molecule, is that everything that like our tech that we bring to the market and to the BioDAO ecosystem, for example, or anyone that wants to use it, by the way, POI is permissionless, so is IP NFTs, is that basically we want to make sure that we protect what's closest to your heart, and that's actually the IP, right? So we want to make sure that we have the means in place to protect what's the most valuable to the inventors, but ultimately also allow for collaboration. So whenever you're ready to share your ideas or inventions, or to show them to the world by tokenizing them and basically giving them a bit more color, for example, adding a description, adding the lead researcher, then you can, right? But ultimately, it's really up to the respective person or entity to do this. So we respect this fully, and it's really about building tech that then gets adoption by just building great products, honestly. And our core goal in product in particular is just being super close to our users, being close to the researchers, being close to students. We actually launched, for example, for POI, when we launched it end of last year, we basically did a biohackathon with university students in Cambridge to test this out. And a lot of them also, for them, it's the first time to basically have some touch points with crypto. And the feedback we received also during this event is just super valuable for us on the product side, because this is the next generation of scientists that we do want to enable, of course. But yeah, this is like one user group, and then there's many more. The DAOs, as mentioned, that are actively using this tech already to bring IP on chain. And also, of course, looking at bio, right? The cohort 2 that's coming on, super interesting DAOs, many different fields, whether it's spine surgeons, quantum biology, you name it. So I think it's just such a diverse user group that is able to use this tech that, of course, you need to basically also say no to certain opportunities when building products. But ultimately, we do want to bring something valuable out there that is useful for different user groups. But yeah, I think as you already mentioned, right, our core niche for Molecule is biotech, is hard IP. This is where we come from. This is where our origin is. But ultimately, also POI can basically be used by anyone that has an idea. It can also be your favorite bread recipe that you can anchor on chain and then at any given point in time prove the ingredients. So I think that's just the cool part of things. It's like it's such a wide spectrum. But of course, we need to be focused on our niche in particular at Molecule and just really make sure that we build amazing products that really help bring the whole space up. So I always describe this to my team as Molecule being the flood in DeSci, or not the flood, but basically, no, sorry, I need to go down. What is it called? The tide. Sorry. Molecule being the tide.
Bilingual issues, yeah.
Sorry, I'm not a native English speaker. But yeah, the tide, exactly. So the tide is, I guess, the right analogy. It's basically if we build great tech, we're kind of like the tide. And so we lift everyone up in the space. And I think that's the aspirational goal that we have, is really build something meaningful and thereby help others as well. Not just BioDAOs or people that are within our ecosystem directly, but everyone in DeSci and hopefully everyone in crypto and particularly in biotech as well.
100%. Yeah, I think you're touching on like quite an interesting point, which I think, given that I work in the comms team of Molecule, is probably quite pertinent to me. But like, proof of invention has been the first time that we've really, really opened up our user base, because I think previously with our other products like the IP NFT and IPT tokenization, you kind of have to have had some form of idea or like well thought out project. You have to be at a point where you're looking for fundraising and that sort of thing, which I think really actually when you boil it down, there are fewer of those sort of projects that are ready to go on chain. Whereas proof of invention is like kind of taking a step back and literally like blowing that funnel wide open. It could literally be anyone with any idea in any form, and they literally log on to the website and register their idea. Takes 2 minutes, fraction of a cent. So yeah, I think it's been an interesting strategy shift for Molecule as a whole. I guess I'm speaking like from the business sense, but like trying to like reconfigure ourselves to now, now we actually can serve pretty much anyone in the world, which is quite cool. Do you think you've seen so I mean, proof of invention has been it was like soft launched. Cambridge Biohackathon was, I think, the first time it saw like outside eyes and outside people, and that was in November of last year. I think that weekend as well. I mean, I must tell all our listeners and our viewers that I was also at the Cambridge Biohackathon. So I was going to say Kevin and I are speaking about the same event that we've both been at. But that weekend as well, it was a crazy weekend because I think as is the nature of Web3 companies and startups, it was like push, build. We went to the Cambridge Biohackathon. We were getting live time feedback on proof of invention with these students, which, side note as well, I do also completely agree with Kevin that I think students are going to be the power users of DeSci. I think, it's all great and well what we're doing now. But I really, really do believe like in 5-10 years, the students who are comfortable with technology are going to be the power users. But anyway, to revert back to my original story, which was that weekend, the product team also took a proof of invention all the way out to an end product with Cerebrum DAO, while simultaneously to set the scene for you all, we were sitting in a Greens bowling alley at this Cambridge biohackathon. There were people in sleeping bags. It was gave big hackathon vibes. And the product team literally had to shimmy over to a corner on a call with Cerebrum DAO and test out this product flow on a random Saturday. Yeah, it was a crazy time, I think. One for the books.
It was wild. Yeah, I think that's just the beauty also of Web3 and building products in Web3 is that at times it's just a bit of crunch mode, but then ultimately it was such a successful weekend. Just having, of course, also the whole product team plus you, Ella, on there as well was just amazing to have them all in Cambridge and then just getting live feedback. I think that's just the beauty of product is if you actually build something cool, try it out, get live feedback as well, and then on top of that, just a BioDAO using it for the first ever IP NFT, and then ultimately even doing basically a fixed price sale of this after raising almost 200K was just crazy. So I think this was a very, very special weekend, and of course not too much sleep, but overall I was super happy with it. And as you mentioned before, right, I think this was something for us where we saw this gap. We saw that basically the existing tech was very much tailored, also working just solely with academia. So very, very structured approach to getting these IP NFTs in there, having agreements attached, and you can still do this. But it's ultimately a lot easier basically to tokenize ideas and then just show them to the world now. And I feel that's just the beauty, and we don't do any curation, we don't do any, let's say, validation of any of the ideas. So basically anyone can do it, can tokenize assets, and then basically what we want to allow is just people, of course, also to play with it, test this out, give us feedback. We're of course aware that this needs to evolve, just as any other product does over the lifetime of it. But we really want to make sure that at least the POC, not the minimum viable product, but the minimum lovable product that we built is already useful for people, and it has already proven to be. And we just want to make sure that it just continues to grow, continues to evolve, and of course continuously meets the needs of our users. And we're super excited about this. This is the first building block with regards to opening up, and I think this is just also the vision of Molecules, just built in public, have it permissionless, anyone can use it, super cheap, super easy. I think the biggest compliment also was especially with the new cohort of BioDAOs coming in, is also a lot of them don't necessarily have deep experience just yet with all of the permissives that we have. But then when they test this out, basically it's oh, that was easy. That was really cheap. I didn't get yelled at, so that's let's just have them play with this as well. And we kind of want to cater, of course, to Web3 native people, right? So you have MetaMask, you know how to on-ramp, how to bridge funds over and then test this out. But ultimately also we want to make these products usable by also the average Joe that maybe doesn't have necessarily already a crypto wallet at hand. So it's also a lot about basically abstracting away a lot of the complexity when it comes to blockchain, just to make these products not just high castles, tech castles in the sky, but actually useful to users. And we'll of course iterate, we'll make the whole flow even better, but I think we already had quite a good start with this.
Yeah. I mean, it's an interesting thing. I come from a science background myself, and only kind of got into Web3 by proxy of working at Molecule, which I think is it puts you in an interesting spot because a lot of Web3 projects are not super duper focused on building for non-Web3 clients or users, I guess. But obviously, if in decentralized science you're trying to build for scientists, and you don't want to limit yourself to the if you go a little Venn diagram and then you try and go Web3 users and crossover with scientists, there definitely is a niche and there definitely is a crossover between the two that we've seen that time and time again. Mm-hmm. But I think it's foolhardy to limit ourselves to that user base only. And so having to think around building for a random principal investigator somewhere in the world that's like, okay, cool, I don't know how to make a wallet, but I can sign in here with my email and, the tech works and I get this timestamp. I think I actually was chatting to someone the other day and they used the analogy like, no one has to know how an email gets sent to use email.
Exactly. And frankly speaking, you probably as a user don't care what's happening in the background. I think you just want the other person to receive it. And that's ultimately also how I see the products that we're building. Like we really want to be able to, just use blockchain easily using our tech. And I think POI is the first step towards this. It's like this immutable thing that you put on a public ledger, aka a database, more or less, and basically can whatever you want to do after. Select the disclosure of your files. It's completely secure. I think it's a really neat way of just giving people the power to decide what they want to do with their inventions. And yeah, tech is great, but most users don't care too much about the tech.
Yeah, 100%. I think if I'm frank, I'm probably that user that doesn't really care what goes on under the hood. I just care about, the utility that it's giving me. I think I would really love to chat through like the envisioned life cycle of a proof of invention. So I think we've spoken a lot about like what it is and how it works and that sort of thing and what need we're trying to solve. But like, say for example, I have an idea, I take a picture of my napkin, I timestamp it using proof of invention, and then what?
Yes, of course, happy to. So basically how we envision the future of IP on-chain using our tech stack, basically what we kind of want to enable is a bit of this paradigm shift in IP protection. And the cool part about POI, I mean, you can leave it there, right? You can put something on there, you can timestamp it, and you can set it and forget it. But ultimately, what we also want to allow is basically whenever you're ready for the next step and basically allow for people to discover what you put on there, we want to enable this via our protocol. So basically, POI is like the entry point towards further tokenization, meaning basically that you can then transform into this very abstract thing that is a POI that can be anything into a token, which is an NFT, so non-fungible token. It's a one of a kind. It's your one amazing invention, and have you basically how to put this easily? I think the best analogy for an IP NFT, which is the step after a POI, is like a Web3 representation of your idea in a tokenized form. Meaning that what this gives you is basically you have a mutable proof of ownership. So you have that asset in your account, wallet, if you would say so. And then you can transfer it, of course, right? You can transfer it, you can license it, you can send it to people if you want to. So for us, this is more like the bridge between traditional IP and our Web3 digital future on-chain. And the cool part is that you can also keep it as like a history of what has happened from the initial inception of your idea. And all great things, all great movements started with an idea or an invention. And then further down the line, as the asset progresses or your idea progresses over time as well, you basically have a proof of what has happened. So you can also attach, for example, any agreements that you had with it, any data drops that come with it to the asset itself. And then just make sure that basically you have an on-chain proof on the public ledger that shows how the asset evolved over time. So from the idea to, for example, an IP NFT. And then ultimately also, of course, you can go a step further and share the idea with others. So there's either the way of inviting them directly in, or we, of course, also have the primitive of our wonderful IP tokens, IPTs, that basically enable you to do like open source collaboration without, for example, losing commercial viability. So IPTs for us in particular are always to agree governance over the underlying IP. So for example, I have an amazing idea, my amazing recipe of bread, just flour and salt. I tokenize this into an asset. And then I have other tokens as well, and I can give Ella, for example, some of these tokens, so she can get access to my wonderful recipe that is flour and breads. And then Ella has this amazing idea of, for example, adding some salt to the recipe, and then basically I can always give her some way to, first of all, contribute to the underlying asset as well, so change the recipe. And then ultimately also give Ella, of course, some governance, right? So she can also have a say, like should there be other ingredients also added? Should there be, I don't know, yeast added or something else? So for us, it really means also to invite other people in while still making sure who has the clear ownership, but basically allow for collaboration. And then, of course, also some attribution to the underlying idea or invention, if you would say. So whether that is token-gated access to private information, voting on proposals, how should the recipe go forward? Should we commercialize the bread making or not? If so, for what price? So I think, it's just a lot of really trying to bring the beauty of blockchain together, which is this decentralized community. So whoever has something meaningful to contribute to should have first of all, the ability to get in touch, but then ultimately also be rewarded for doing so. And I think that's just the beauty of things. It's just basically having this trail in history, what happens with the asset, inviting other people in, and then ultimately also if you ever come to a stage where, for example, you need to raise for funding for your amazing bread store that you want to bring to the next level, you can also do this, right? And we had relatively proven products as well, for example, doing this via Catalyst. But there are other launch mechanisms as well, so like fixed price sale, etc., where you could also help basically crowd fund through the community to meet next milestones in your idea and your progress. And I think this is just the very, very top of the funnel, as we discussed, POI. And then there's a lot of possibilities, and there will be even more possibilities in the future on what you can do with it. So super, super excited.
This just in, Kevin and I are starting a bakery. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I think I like seeing how it's sort of, we are just slowly sort of creating this you can see my hands are gesturing. We're building out a pipeline, which is essentially a protocol. But yeah, it's nice to see all the pieces sort of like fit in together and plug in. This is, I was going to say, as we kind of soft launched it last year, this has actually been, it's not a theory, it has been happening. These, under the hood, all of the IP NFTs minted for the past couple of months have started as POIs. So Kevin, please could you tell us about one or two of the projects that have done this whole cycle?
I think one of the most exciting / the first actually project that used POI from end to end was Cerebrum's project MITI. So this was actually the one that we started to do live during the hackathon in Cambridge as well. They really went from the start, just anchoring initial invention on chain to then tokenizing into an IP NFT, attaching legal agreements on the go as well, of course. So basically any license agreement, and then ultimately just ended up also doing a fundraise for it. So I think it was really, really cool to see it from the start to, at least for now, the end, which was the fundraising. And then of course a successful fundraise in the end, almost raising 200K. And I was just so excited to also see the DAO using it for the first time. It was a really smooth experience, and we basically settled the fixed price sale beginning of January 2025, and just allowed other people to already get a stake in this as well. So it was really nice to see it. And I think another project that I think is quite a nice one was, of course, the hackathon itself. So just having student testers, but then also the collaboration with VitaDAO. So VitaDAO is currently also running some kind of idea-a-thon with external researchers. So they're called Vita Labs, or the whole program is called Vita Labs. And basically what VitaDAO does is they use POI as I'm not saying like a deal flow, but like an inbox for any of the project submissions. So what POI also allows you to do is basically for the researcher that comes to DAO and proposes their initial idea to have a proof that they were the ones proposing it. So it gives also the external researchers, some kind of confidence that basically they're in control, right? It's not something that they could propose to the DAO and then the DAO says, this is my idea now, thanks for giving this to me, but there is an on-chain proof for the researchers as well, that basically they were the ones doing it for the first time, proposing it to VitaDAO. If then, for example, VitaDAO says, this is such an amazing idea, we want to continue with this, there will always be attribution to the initial creator or the inventor of things because there's on-chain proof. And I think this is just a neat way of showing that also POI is like a really, really cool primitive to just enable collaboration, also in a decentralized manner, where usually blockchain has its best use cases when you have a lot of actors that don't necessarily 100% trust themselves. Not saying that this is happening with Vida Labs, but it's really cool to show that you were the initial one and you can invite other people in while still being able to show that you created this thing. And then if there's any further steps further down the line, so for example, tokenizing, fundraising, monetization of the asset itself, then you will always have a proof that you were the initial creator. So you can't be basically cut out from the whole process. And I think that's just, those 2-3 projects I really enjoy seeing. It's really cool use cases as well. And just also shows to us that there are different use cases for POI that we didn't think of initially, but they are getting adopted right now. For example, we also have an upcoming hackathon, biohackathon. So if you haven't signed up, sign up and join. Starts 8th of April. But also the agents basically are able to then anchor POIs on chain. So if there's anything useful coming out of this, they can do this automatically as well. So just with the initial version of the very minimum lovable product that we built, we already can basically see a lot of different use cases, but we want to make sure that this continues to evolve. We have a lot of cool stuff that people are building on top of it. And we want to make sure that we find these killer use cases as well for POI that we can then just iterate on and just double down and make even better.
Yeah, cool. I as far as I know as well, Ethan from Polara or Qtopia, as some of you might know it, he also used it recently. So yeah, I think it's really cool, like building something and then getting it out into the hands of the user. I'm sure, like, as the head of product, there must be like a crazy, like, hold your breath moment when a product is first deployed and like first used, and like a crossing of our fingers and toes and just hoping that like all the work and everything that's gone into it kind of.
That's the beauty of the job as well, right? It's in essence, it's a lot of course, you try to be data driven as much as possible. I think that's the core of things, but then ultimately it's a lot of, I wouldn't call them bets, but in essence, no one knows what the outcome of things will be. You can kind of guess and you can kind of get an intuition for things, and that's important. But ultimately, the real test is the execution and the delivery of things, and basically the market adoption or no market adoption. And just seeing that there was already such an interest of it just in the first couple of weeks and months was really, really nice. And I think just shows that we are building things that matter. I don't think it's fair to say that we have everything figured out by now. I think no one in crypto does, to be completely honest. But we're doing our best. We're executing well right now. And I think we just need to continue the pace because competition isn't sleeping. And for us, it's just really, really important to deliver products quickly and then iterate based on feedback that we receive. I don't think that's the way to build in silence for 8 weeks or 8 months even. And then just bring something out and then find out, oh no, sorry, all of the planning and discovery didn't matter. So I would rather always have the ability to launch something quickly, iterate, and then get feedback early on. Because ultimately, and that's a cliche, feedback is the breakfast for champions, and we're champions of molecules, so I think it's important.
Yes. Thank you, Kevin. I think it's been nice to see the product team sort of, like we've been growing as well a lot, our engineering team, our protocol, everything's been growing. So I think this year will be a big year for Molecule in the tech front.
Oh yes, very excited what is going to come. We have big plans. We have really exciting launches already coming up in the next, I would say, even weeks. So stay tuned. I think it's going to be quite a successful year for Molecule and for DeSci in general, of course. And if you ever want to get in touch, if you have amazing ideas, if you want to build side by side, let us know. Let me know. Reach out. Discord, Twitter, email, POI, disclose it. You can. We'll be super happy to just jam on things, make a great space, make sure that DeSci lives up to its promises, and we build really amazing tech and product.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Yeah,
Thanks for
it's
having me,
been
Ella.
great chatting to you, even though we do speak quite frequently. It's always nice to get down and really like dig into the stuff that we're doing and what we're working towards as Molecule.
Likewise, Ella. Always a pleasure.
Okay, have a beautiful day. Bye.
You too. Take care. Bye bye.